You should watch this at night. Hey curious cats, my name is Sahara. Welcome to that true crime channel. Let's get into it. Tonight's case takes us to Colorado, USA, and yeah, let's get into it. Isabella Guzman was born in June the 9th, 1995 in Colorado. When she's 3 years old, her parents divorce and they eventually both meet someone else. At first, Isabella lives with her mother, Yunmi, and her stepfather, Ryan, but she's a very difficult child, so when Isabella is about 7 years old, she's sort of sent back to her father. It is reported that Isabella's stepmother doesn't like her. She's very abusive towards her, and I have to stop here for a minute. I know it's easy for me to say, and I'm gonna sound judgmental. I know that. I want to say to her dad, that was an excellent job that you did. I'm not defending parasite, of course. This is just a side note and a rant on all parents who are selfish enough to find a new partner with little to no consideration for their kid or kids. It just gets on my nerves. And to all those people who meet someone who has kids from a previous relationship, and when they tell you, you say that you're okay with it when really you're not, what can I say? Do you have any idea of the harm that you cause when you're sort of denying access to one of their parents just because you're too selfish and you want that person all to yourself? You have to really think before you get into a relationship with someone who has children. And I know you're gonna say that maybe I don't know the full story, and I did just say that Isabella was a difficult child, but she's the child. They're the parents. They're the ones who have the responsibility to, manage their children, you find solutions to problems. She was just a kid. And I think, again, this is something that shows how hard on a child divorces can be. Parents kid themselves into thinking that separation is best for the kid and it's a better environment than parents who always fight. I personally don't think it's true. I think it's an excuse people give themselves to get out of a marriage, and I think it's selfish. I think it's really selfish. I know I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for this, but I'm okay with it. I accept it. If you also come from a broken home, you understand what I'm talking about, and if not, there's no way you can understand unless it eventually happens to you. And I don't wish it on anybody because it is the worst thing that I've had to go through, one of the worst things I've had to go through in my life. So I don't wish it on anybody. It's one of those things that you have to go through to really understand, if that makes sense. So yeah, I feel like Western societies encourage divorce. What's up with that? Is it capitalism at its best? Consumerism? Even when it comes to relationships, it's just crazy. I think it's better for the economy when you have two single people rather than, a couple living under the same roof. It's just really sad that now divorce just comes so easy to people and kids suffer from it. Anyway, we should move on because I could rant about this for 10 hours and I'm stopping to make sense now, so let's move on. As a result of this stepmother being such a Isabella had to move back in with her mother. Parents playing ping pong with their kid, don't you just love that? Isabella's mother and stepfather are Jehovah's Witnesses, and Isabella, being under their roof, was sort of, forced into the religion. But when she turned 14, she decided to resign. So they call it resigning or disassociating yourself from the congregation. Now, you should know that according to their principles, a Jehovah's Witness has to stay distant from the world as much as possible because they believe it to be evil, and they have to keep their relationships with people who are not witnesses to a strict minimum, even if they are close family members. So as you can imagine, religion became a big issue between mother and daughter, and they were fighting a lot over that, among other things. Isabella claims that she was abused by her mother and stepfather. Things got worse after her apostasy. Leave a comment if you know what that word means. Isabella explains that the reason she's so difficult, especially with her mother, is because she was angry at her for marrying someone else. She felt like she was trying to replace her dad and she was just very angry with her. Again, I'm not defending her, but I get that when you're a child and someone new is, brought to the home, it's something that can be very traumatizing. It's such a big change, and I feel like parents don't talk to their kids enough. They don't explain, things that might seem obvious to them but are not to the kids, and you just have to, live with that new person who comes in, and that's it. It can be very difficult. I think your world collapsing from the divorce or separation of your parents is such a big change. All of a sudden, especially when it happens so soon, there's someone new And it's just another, huge change. And I get why she felt that her father was being replaced. I think I really want to emphasize the pain that kids go through when their parents split up. It's such tremendous pain that having to deal with another big change, you don't really know how to react to it. So I get that she reacted with violence. I'm not saying that she was right to do that. I'm just saying that I understand it. I also found out that another reason for Isabella to be so mad at her mom is that eventually she found out the real reason behind the divorce. What happened was Yunmi was married to Robert Guzman. She met Ryan Hoy while she was still married to Robert, and she cheated on her husband. That was the reason for the divorce. And then she dated Ryan for a short time and then they got married. So when Isabella found out the truth about that, she became even more difficult than she already was. At some point, Isabella got into a relationship with this guy who was said to be abusive, which was no change from her already violent environment. She eventually broke up with him, but he would stalk her, he would follow her to her house, he would sometimes bang on the door. A couple times, mother and daughter argued because of that, because of him. Isabella's aunt confirmed the issues between mother and daughter because of her boyfriend, because of Isabella's boyfriend, and also because of religion. But she did confirm that their relationship was not a good one anyway, and that was long before Isabella left the congregation. I mean, her mother did describe her as, so difficult that she sent her to her father at some point, so, not the greatest bond between them. The day before the events, Isabella and her mother got into another fight because of the boyfriend stalking her. During that fight, Isabella spat on her mother's face. I would much prefer a slap. I mean, spitting, no, I can't deal with that. Yunmi got to a point where she was afraid of her own daughter, so much so that on the day of this fight, she asked her husband to lock the door to her bedroom. For some reason, they were sleeping in separate bedrooms. I looked into it because I thought maybe it came from the fact that they were Jehovah's Witnesses, and I thought maybe it was a rule. I didn't find anything, so I don't think it was the case. But yeah, for some reason they were not sleeping in the same bedroom. The next day, the day after the fight, August 28, 2013, Yunmi receives an email from her daughter saying, among other things, "You will pay." Yunmi is already afraid of her own daughter, and this threat was just, the cherry on top. So she called the police that day. At this point, Isabella is 18 years old. She turned 18 3 months prior in June, so she has no legal obligation towards her daughter, and that's what the police tell her when they arrive. They basically tell her, this is Yunmi and Ryan's house. They can kick you whenever they want, so you should behave. Police leaves and all seems fine, but Yunmi still decides to call her ex-husband so he would try and talk some sense into their daughter. So Robert Guzman comes over and he talks to his daughter. He explains to her basically, Yunmi's your mother, you should respect her, you should respect your parents, you're under her roof, so you should do as she says. So he's basically talking about, the respect you should have for your parents. After seeing her reaction to what he's saying, he feels like she's, she understands. He feels like she's calmed down. He feels like he's made progress with Isabella through this conversation, not to the point that, things will be okay 100%, but at least they will be better. And he really feels like she has calmed down. So he leaves. A few hours later, that same day in the evening, Yunmi comes back from work. It's around 10:30 p.m. She goes upstairs to the bathroom. She wants to take a shower. Ryan is downstairs. He's watching TV and eating his dinner. At some point, he hears like a loud thump coming from upstairs. He rushes to the bathroom and he catches a glimpse of Isabella. And when she sees him, she closes the door immediately and she locks it. He tries to open it in vain, but he can't. He's, banging on the door. He's calling Isabella's name. He's calling Yunmi's name. And he hears her say Jehovah, which means God. He gets his phone and he calls 911. Then Ryan sees this pool of blood coming out from under the bathroom door. Ryan is still on the phone with 911. And after a few minutes that must have seemed like an eternity, the door unlocks and it opens. Isabella comes out. She has a knife in her hand and it's dripping with blood. Isabella herself is covered with blood. She doesn't even make eye contact with him. She just comes out of the bathroom. She walks past him like he's not even there and she leaves. Ryan enters the bathroom and he discovers Yunmi's body naked. There's a baseball bat right next to her. She has a lot of stab wounds on her face and on her neck. He starts compressions, but he knows that she's already dead because she was, staring blankly ahead. He continues compressions until help arrives and they declare her dead on the scene. After she killed her mother, Isabella fled the scene and she turned off her phone so she wouldn't be tracked. Her stepfather had described to police what she was wearing when she left the house, and a manhunt started. Woman hunt. Can you say woman hunt? A woman hunt started. The next morning around 11, someone called the police and said they found a dead woman inside a car. Police showed up, but nobody was inside the car. They still looked inside and they found items that they believed belonged to Isabella, and items also to be linked to the homicide. Isabella was found shortly after that in a parking lot. Now, I don't know if it was the same parking lot as where they found the car, but I know for a fact that she was found not too far from her house. When police found her and realized who it was, of course, they arrested her. As you can see in the picture, she wasn't covered in blood when police finally found her, and I did wonder why. It turns out that what happened was she had gone to a shop and she had claimed to the shop owner that she was a rape victim. The owner believed her, he let her in, he allowed her to use the bathroom, and that's where she changed her clothes. Isabella Guzman was arrested 16 hours into the woman hunt. Yeah, I want to say woman hunt. She was charged with first-degree murder and 2 counts of crime of violence. Now, keep in mind that she's 18 years old, so the death penalty is a possibility here. The autopsy revealed that Yunmi had been stabbed a total of 151 times. 31 times on the face, and can you imagine 31 stabs on the face? She was unrecognizable. 48 in the neck, is that even possible? And 72 times on the rest of her body. Some articles said that it was a total of 151 just on the face and neck. 79 is already a lot. I think what's more plausible is 71 on the face and neck and 79 on the rest of the body. I mean, journalists, they just like drama. Like 71 times is not bad enough. Yunmi had also been beaten by the baseball bat that they found next to her body because, some of the bruises that she had were consistent with the type of injury. Isabella pleaded not guilty for reason of insanity, and of course she had to go through psych evaluations. They confirmed the diagnosis of paranoid schizophrenia. Some of the symptoms of schizophrenia include not being able to tell the difference between right and wrong, hallucinations, and paranoid delusions, among other things. A family doctor testified during the trial, and he said Isabella was a paranoid schizophrenic and she'd had delusions for years. Now, why is it that she never received treatment? Friends were shocked by the murder, of course, as anyone would be, but they did acknowledge that the relationship between mother and daughter was strenuous. I could not find if they confirmed atypical behavior or, behavior that would be consistent with schizophrenia or paranoia, which I thought was odd. I really expected to, read testimonies from family members or friends or classmates saying that they had witnessed, odd behavior, but I didn't find anything. It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, it just means that I didn't find it. The only 2 testimonies were from her father when he said that, he did go visit her the day of the murder a few hours before the event happened, and her aunt, who also, confirmed the relationship between mother and daughter not being great. But she did say that she did not expect things to escalate to murder. She could not believe that Isabella, killed her own mother. Something that Isabella said as part of her insanity plea is that she believed her mother was a woman named Cecilia whose mission was to destroy the world, and that's why she had to die. Then why would she send an email on the morning of the murder, threatening her mother and saying, "You will pay"? That was clear reference to, the abuse. It doesn't add up. And obviously, during the trial, the relationship between Isabella and her mother was discussed, so they know about that email. There is an email, there are obvious threats, and she claims that her mother and stepfather were abusive. But on the other hand, she claims that she was an evil person named Cecilia and she had to die because she was going to destroy the world. So which is it? Is it the schizophrenia? Is it payback for the abuse? Is it both? It sounded a bit strange to me. At her first hearing, you could see Isabella smiling at the camera. Nobody really knows why she smiled. I mean, she doesn't actually smile. It's more of a smirk, like, "You want my picture?" and she's in shackles, so there's not much more that she can do. Later, she starts to, tear up, and she notices another camera, and then she just does that. Like, like, oh, tears, that's what you wanted, right? That's what you were looking for. You must be happy now. At times during the trial, people reported seeing her staring into space or, laughing for no reason or talking to herself. Just really odd behavior considered obvious signs of, a mental illness. And just as an FYI, for the second hearing, Isabella refused to leave her cell, and that caused the hearing to be delayed to the afternoon. Now, people have speculated that it was either, the mental illness, or it was simply because she's a rebellious teenager. The insanity plea was accepted, which is super rare. Insanity pleas have a 26% success rate. Success meaning that the defendant will be institutionalized and not be sent to prison. A release would be crazy, right? I mean, I just killed someone, I have a mental illness, can I leave? No, I don't think so. You obviously need help. However, there are not a lot of defendants who will plead insanity. It's only 1%. So out of this 1%, only 26% are going to be successful, which is not a lot. Isabella was sent to the Colorado Mental Health Institute in Pueblo, Colorado for an undetermined period, meaning that she could get out soon, she could get out in 10 years, or she could never get out. In fact, she made a request recently to be returned to normal society.
I was not myself when I did that, and I have since been restored to full health. If I could have chosen a different path now, I would have. I can't change the past. The fight with my mom was terrible, and I was injured in the process. I have the scars on my hands. I don't know if you can see or not.
If, like me, you didn't know that until the TV series Dexter, when you stab someone, you can actually hurt yourself because, like while you're stabbing the person, obviously blood comes out. It will get on the knife and your hand can slip and it can slip on the blade and you can cut yourself. And that would actually explain why Isabella had bandages on her hands during the trial. She had cuts from killing her mother. While I was researching this case, I had tons of questions. I mean, by now you probably know me enough to know that this is very like me to always have tons of questions. And one of them was, can you fake mental illness? It's not unheard of. Munchausen syndrome is a mental illness in which a person will fake being sick by faking the symptoms, and usually it's a physical condition, and they do that to get attention from hospital staff and from, family members and friends. Munchausen by proxy is when you make someone sick. So you don't do that to yourself, you do it to someone else. And usually it's someone who is under your care, like a child. It's usually a child, but it can also be a parent who's, dependent on you, for example. It is a serious condition and it is a condition, it's a mental illness. So I'm not making fun of people who have that. But yeah, and it's actually very hard to diagnose. But yeah, so there is such a thing as Munchausen by proxy and Munchausen. So because I knew that, I asked myself, like, was she suffering from that? But it turns out that Munchausen would not be relevant to this case because you do that to get the attention of people. If Isabella did indeed fake her mental illness, which I think is a possibility, but it would be called malingering. It would not be Munchausen. And the difference between malingering and Munchausen is that malingering is you just, faking being sick to get out of something. Kids, when they're young and they don't want to go to school, they will fake, having, stomach issues. Men will fake being sick to avoid military service, stuff like that. So yeah, it would be possible to fake a mental illness so you don't go to prison, or so you avoid the death penalty, or so you don't get a lengthy, prison sentence. It is a possibility. The reasons I had for asking myself these questions were, first of all, the family doctor who diagnosed her with paranoid schizophrenia and never gave her treatment. The other reason was not having any testimony from family members or friends or classmates saying that, they noticed, odd behavior that would be consistent with a mental illness. And the other reason was the email. Obviously, she was mad at her mother and she wanted her to pay for the abuse and for everything. And she probably felt abandoned too. So there was, a lot of anger. The email would be consistent with, just, payback because you hate your mother. And I want to insist on the doctor not giving her treatment. I mean, I don't know know if the family refused. Isabella refused. I mean, she was a minor at the time she was diagnosed. He said he had diagnosed her with the paranoid schizophrenia years ago, and he knew about the delusions she had. So I don't know, maybe he thought that the symptoms were not severe enough that she would need treatment. But I just had these three reasons for asking myself the question of, was she faking her mental illness? And I'm not saying that these very valid questions and these inconsistencies are proof that she was faking mental illness. I'm just saying that I had these questions, but I do keep in mind that internet has its limits. Now let's talk about TikTok and why did Isabella become famous on TikTok. First of all, you should know that this TikTok trend and TikTok challenge, because yeah, there was a TikTok challenge that happened last year, that happened in 2020. The murder happened in 2013, and she became famous 7 years later. So what happened was some images of Isabella in court resurfaced, and someone had the brilliant idea to publish those images on TikTok with the song Sweet But Psycho by Ava Max. It's actually a cool song, I like the instrumentals, but the lyrics did cause controversy because it sounds like she's romanticizing mental illness. Now, what do you think about that song? Do you even know about that song? Because I didn't before I started researching this case. There is an organization in Ireland who fights, mental illness stigma, who thinks the song should be banned. So I don't know, what do you think? Some people actually see it as a feminist anthem where the singer is reclaiming the negative connotations around madness and womanhood. Bitches be crazy. The singer herself says she's just mocking, the fact that men always call us crazy. I mean, we're not crazy, we're just different. I'm not really sure, but I think the TikTok challenge started in the Philippines because you go online and it's all, from the Philippines, it's all in Filipino. Most of the videos were in Filipino. I hope I'm not going to get a copyright issue here, so I am going to describe what you can see on the images, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to show you the images, but I might have to cut out this part. Basically, the challenge is to portray yourself as Isabella, and some even went as far as wearing something that resembled the orange jumpsuit and pretended to be brought in by a, fake police officer and making the same gestures that she made, the smirking and the pointing at her eyes. I don't think the brief nature of internet challenges will bring you fame. They will for like 2 seconds and then you go back to oblivion. For most people, it's the case. And what's the point? There's probably no point in discussing why people follow stupid challenges when they are stupid. I mean, some of them are okay, some of them are, funny, cool, or whatever. But these kids, because if you're talking TikTok, you're talking kids and teenagers, these kids sometimes follow trends that are either, very sexual, or they don't know what they mean, or even worse, they know what they mean and they still, blindly follow a trend. They are completely detached from it, like emotionally detached from it. To me, that's a problem. And just think about it for a second. If you have a kid or kids, or if you plan on having kids in the future, would you be okay with them mimicking a killer on social media? I know I wouldn't be. Would you want them to tweet about how pretty a killer is so she can't be that bad? My kids will not have fun. I will live in the forest like Captain Fantastic. A lot of people defended her on social media, saying that she was too pretty to be evil. Actually, I think the song was a perfect fit because that's how a lot of people felt, that she was sweet, but she was psycho. But it was okay because she was sweet. I don't understand when people say that someone is pretty and they don't understand that that person can be evil. It's like they think evil has a face. People should stop watching TV and stop thinking a person who's evil has, big eyes, an evil look, an evil grin, an evil laughter. That's not real life. And I feel like I have to specify because, I hate when I watch the news and you'll see, neighbors being interviewed and they will say, like, oh my God, he was my neighbor. He was so nice every time I needed milk or sugar. It's not because they give you milk and sugar that they're nice, Nice is different than good. I know I said in my last video that when someone is nice, you can sort of see it on their faces, but it doesn't mean that you can also see evil on someone's face. I also should specify that some people who followed this trend were actually mocking her, which I think is also not okay. I mean, she was diagnosed a paranoid schizophrenic, so you're making fun of someone who has a mental illness. Yes, I did ask myself the question of, was she faking it? Maybe she was faking it. If you take into consideration the outcome of the trial, she was diagnosed with mental illness, not only by the family doctor, but also by, the psych evaluations that she had to go through during her trial. I sort of do accept that, even though I still have this question in the back of my mind that maybe she was faking it. 80% of me believes that she does have a mental illness. So if you're mocking her on social media, it's not okay. Supporting her is not okay, and mocking her is not okay. Some people said she did not deserve to be a trend just because she was beautiful. And I think it's probably the most reasonable thing I read about this case. That's something that was being said online by people. Yes, she had a mental illness, and yes, she went to court, and yes, she's, facing the consequences of what she did, or the consequences of her mental illness by being institutionalized. But we're still talking about murder. I don't think anyone should be a trend because they killed someone, regardless of the context. And there was also this article that specified that some of the people who followed, the trend and the TikTok challenge, they actually didn't even know why she was, in court. They didn't even know that she had murdered her own mother. Blindly following a trend to get some likes, I think it's even worse. In case you wonder why does something go viral, I found a couple of answers. According to my findings, getting people worked up about something helps with shares. We're talking about emotions here. People will get worked up about a teenager killing her mother by people defending a killer, by people saying that she was too pretty to go to jail. So you have the emotion factor here that plays a big part in something that will become either trendy or viral. Another aspect is social currency, meaning that if you follow this trend, it will make you look, cool or good to the eyes of others. And just to mention a last one, popularity, meaning that if it's something that's already viral, you just want to follow the trend, you just want to be part of it. It gives you a sense of, belonging to a community, belonging to a group, a sense of acceptance. And there were others, they're not relevant to our case, but you should Google it if you're interested in why things become viral. I thought it was fascinating. I just want to conclude this video by saying that, one thing that came up a lot in my research was, is a prison sentence better than, a mental hospital? Funnily enough, the answer of a lot of people was prison is actually better. One thing that can help us understand this answer, because I thought it was shocking, but something happened to Isabella at the mental hospital. She filed a complaint against a staff member for sexual assault, and that same staff member was accused of the same thing by two other patients. The investigation is ongoing, and you should also know that in that same hospital, something happened. I don't know when, I think it was pretty recent, maybe 2018. There was this patient who was at this mental hospital, and he was not in the same case as Isabella. He was not a criminal offender. He was just a patient with mental illness. I don't know what exactly happened, but he was put in a room and he was strapped on the bed on his stomach for some reason. They left him there and he eventually died. He suffocated and he died. Some crazy stuff happens in mental hospitals. I mean, at least in this one. So I can understand. I think I can understand why people would say that sometimes prisons can be better. You also have to keep in mind that in a mental hospital, patients take treatment and they don't take treatment for a cold. The drugs they take have, very strong side effects like, drowsiness or sleepiness. They're just more vulnerable than people who are not taking any drugs. It's just easy to take advantage of that situation. And crazily enough, I mean, I don't know if it's crazy, but some people do say that the insane conditions of a mental institution are actually punishment for these people, and even if they have a mental illness, they should still answer for their crimes, so it's a punishment as well. I just want to quickly get back on the parenting rant. I want to specify that I'm not judging. I mean, I get that nobody's perfect and you make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes. I get that it's hard to be a parent. I'm just giving my opinion as a kid who's been through stuff. Yeah, I just wanted to express my opinion. I have the right to express my opinion. Someone else's life should not be taken lightly. This is at least probably the biggest lesson that I took from what happened to me and what I saw happen to other people. If you're responsible for someone's life, it is a huge responsibility. You should think it through. You should not have kids because society dictates that you should get married and have kids. You should have them because you want them. You should be, fully aware of what it involves, what it means to be a parent. I think you should also be ready for the possibility of being a single parent because you don't know what can happen. And I'm not talking about divorce only or separation. I also mean accident or death or a sickness. Anything can happen, and you have to be aware of that. I do find comfort in the fact that I noticed that recently people are more educated when it comes to parenting, parenthood. I'm really happy. It makes me really happy. There are a lot more books, and there's no stigma around the fact that a kid can need professional help if there's, problems going on at the home or whatever it can be. I remember when I was younger, if we knew of a kid at school who had to go see, a shrink or a psychiatrist, everybody would make fun of that kid because they would say that kid is crazy. Today, things I feel are very different, which is a great thing, which is a good thing. So, yeah, I'm happy to see that mentalities have evolved on the matter. Time for the random item review. And tonight we're talking about something green because we are green on the True Crime channel. You know that. This is actually an item that I'm not going to be. I mean, I do use it at home, but initially I bought it to, go to work and avoid purchasing or avoid needing plastic cutlery. This set has a spoon, a fork, and chopsticks because, yeah, I use chopsticks all the time like I'm an Asian person and I love using chopsticks. I'm really good at using chopsticks. But yeah, I thought this set was really cool. It was a little bit expensive for AliExpress. I think it was like 7 or 8 euros, which is not the price I'm used to paying on AliExpress. I think it's a good investment. Whenever it's good for the planet, I always see it as a good investment. And you have, tons of different kinds. You have ones with knives if you don't know how to use chopsticks. You have different colors too and different materials. I think this one is stainless steel, but you also have bamboo and you just have, different materials. I would highly suggest you get a set like this one if you eat outside a lot and if you don't work from home like me. So, yeah. Be green. This is the end of this video, and I thank you so much for staying until the end. I really love when people stay until the end. It makes me feel special. Let me know if you have any suggestions for the upcoming weeks, and I'll see you soon. Bye.